for coming to Dollars and Donuts today. So today we're talking about the first day of a job and the forms that you have to fill out. Becky will be from CP Federal Credit Union. Will be talking to us about that for about 15 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A afterwards. So thank you guys for coming, and if you need to go after the 15 minutes during the Q&A, feel free to take donuts before you go, and yeah, so thanks.
Okay, so just a little incentive to stay, because I know this is not the most exciting topic. We have a $25 Visa gift card drawing at the end if you stay for the whole thing. So Sarah's gonna do the fun part of that. So my name's Becky, as Kayla said, and I did my own little word cloud. This was fun, right? And I only put it up there because subliminally it might say "Pay Becky," but no. And the words in there, I'm like, this is kind of dumb. I don't know. This isn't really me. But anyway, that was a fun thing to do. I've worked at CP Credit Union for 22 years, and I've worked the majority of that in human resources. So I've seen a lot of new hires come in. My department does a lot of the recruiting and hiring at the credit union, and the payroll and the benefits. So that your first day, hopefully this doesn't look like you on your first day with all of the forms and papers, but the objective that I want to impart to you today is kind of understanding those first day of employment, things that you have to do from your perspective as the new employee. I want to give you confidence in when you're going through that, because I can't tell you how many times we see that with a new hire that comes in and you start working through all these forms with taxes and 401ks and different things, and they just get that deer in the headlights look, like I don't even know what to do or what this is. And so I'm hoping to give you a little bit of information on that so you can feel a little more comfortable and knowledgeable about it. So we talked about forms, information, and more data. I'm going to talk to you about what you need to bring, what you need to be prepared for that first day, as well as some of the why behind some of those forms and things you're doing. And that's the what's what. So first things first, when you got a job offer or a new job offer, hopefully you got a confirmation letter or some sort of confirmation of your position and title and the pay rate, and you can ask for that. A confirmation of the offer from the employer. We're always glad to do that. In fact, with our new hires, we send them a letter that confirms everything we talked to them about. And of course, it tells them where to come their first day, where to park, where to show up, what's going to happen. And then you may have a payroll form to fill out and verify that the business or the company has your correct Social Security number. So important. We want your taxes to get reported to under the right Social Security number, and your benefits as well. So you may verify that, but that's a pretty quick thing. You may experience your new hire packet or forms either online, using electronic methods, or you may use paper methods as well. You may be filling out a bunch of papers. At CP, we do a combination of both. And you also may experience something called like a DocuSign or an electronic signature. We do a lot of that with our when we are looking at a candidate. We'll have them fill out their background check forms and everything through an electronic process. So we'll send them the forms, they'll electronically sign and email it back to us, and that's perfectly legal and fine. So the first thing I want to talk about, it's probably easy to just say this is 3 different sections. So your government, your tax forms, your insurances and what those mean, and then your retirement plans. So what we usually start out with at CP is what's called an eligibility to work in the United States form. It's created by the Department of Homeland Security, and you have to be able to prove within 3 days of employment that you are eligible to work in the United States using one of the documentary methods that they prescribe, and I'll show you that in a second. So you're going to have to bring in some identity, some proof of your identity, and if you can't provide that within 3 days, we can't employ you. So that's important to know. This is kind of what the form looks like. I've cut off the bottom of it, but really your part is really easy. So all tax forms are is a bunch of name, address, social security number, hire date, and a signature. But this second page of that I-9 form says you can have one of these documents, or you can have something from this list and something from this list. So a lot of people tend to bring their driver's license and their social security card, and that does it. But they have the option of just using a passport if they want to. That would prove their identity for this process. We, as an employer, can't tell you which document to bring. We can only provide you the list, and you choose which ones. So this I-9 form, that's you're going to learn a lot of human resource terms, so you're going to be experts when you leave here. The I-9, or that eligibility form. You can use your social security card for it. It needs to be signed. So if the line is blank, sign it now. We definitely want that signed. We do verify authenticity with the documentation, so I'm not going to take copies or photocopies or anything like that. And I wouldn't be a good financial institution person if I didn't tell you don't carry your social security card around every day. Only for the purposes when you need it, because that's something where your identity can get stolen, and you certainly don't want that, in your purse just hanging out. If you have a name change or you've lost it, I've provided the website up here. I do have copies of this presentation you're welcome to grab if you want to afterwards or whenever. You can always go to ssa.gov. You can order it online, provided you can provide certain things. You may be able to mail it in, or you may have to go actually visit the local office. Depends. So let's say you get to your employer and you've lost your social security card. You can bring in proof that you went to the office, and they'll give you a printout of something saying that it's on the way. And we'll use that. It's okay to use that if you have something that says it's on its way, and then you'll bring in the actual card when you get it. So I know, yawn, boring, tax forms, those are the first things we're going to have you fill out as an employee. I'm human resources, I'm not an accountant, so please don't ask me about a bunch of questions about taxes. When people look at us and say, well, what should I do? I can't really tell them what they should do, but I can tell them what happens, how they fill out the form. If you look at, I brought this with me because I actually did it. This is the federal tax form. You fill out this little section here, easy, right? Name, date, social security number, hire date, how many, you're married, single. And then you have to figure out how many allowances you want. So there's a 3-part table, which you can do. I did it yesterday for the very first time. You'd think working for 22 years there, I would have done it more. But anyway, it turned out to be correct, right? It turned out to be okay. I do owe taxes this year. I know I need to reduce my allowances. I just figured that out on paper too. But you can do that if you want, but you don't have to. Just know that if you claim a single status and 0 allowances, it's going to take the most tax out of you. You may have a refund. And then as you increase allowances, it takes out a little less tax. And this will tell you what allowances you have. A lot of times you might hear people that say, wow, I got this great refund. I got $8,000. I want to just give you a little word of wisdom. If you have that big of a refund, you're giving the government your money all year long, and they're keeping it, and you're not even earning any interest on it, or you're not earning any return. So you might want to increase your exemption so you're putting less in. You'll get less of a refund back, but more in your paycheck that you could be saving for yourself versus letting them keep it and then give it back to you. There are calculators that will help you determine if you're paying enough taxes. IRS.gov. So the state of Michigan has a 1-pager. It's not like 3 or 4. Again, easy little section to fill out. They don't care if you're married or single. They just want to know how many allowances you have. And allowances are things like, it can be 0. It can be you can claim yourself. It just depends on your taxes, and if you itemize deductions, sometimes it's helpful to know how many allowances you have. If you have children, maybe you want to pay less in taxes because you know you're going to get an exemption for those children on your taxes, and so you'll get, have to pay less. But just remember, single 0 takes out the most, and then it goes up from there. All these forms and everything about them can be found online. This one is found at michigan.gov. And then you may work in a city that has city tax, and so Jackson does, so I've included the city tax form for Jackson. They collect on residents who work in the city, they collect 1%, and then on people who work in the city but don't live in the city, they collect 0.5%. So 2 of our branches 3 of our ranches are in the city currently. You're probably going to be asked for emergency contact information. Make sure that this is someone you can trust, so that when we call them, hey, Johnny didn't show up for work today. Where is he? What's going on? Or, we need to call someone for an emergency. We want that information. We may ask for your physician's information. In my 20-some years, I've never used the physician information, but we ask for it still. You may also fill out what's called an affirmative action survey. It lists your ethnicity. It asks you to identify your ethnicity, gender, your veteran status, if you're a veteran or a disabled veteran. We do that because we, as a credit union, are considered a contractor of the federal government because we obtain insurance from the government. We also redeem savings bonds. That makes us a contractor of the government. And so we have to make sure that our workforce is a representation of the community. And so the only way to find that out is to ask you what those items are. All right. Pay. So the other thing you're going to need to know is, where's your direct deposit or your money going to go? Most employers use direct deposit. There are some that still do paper checks, but I'm hoping most of them, I hate paper checks, by the way. So I would rather see employees use the direct deposit and go into their financial institution. You're going to need to know your account number. What account? Do you want it in a savings or checking? And you're going to need to know your financial institution's routing and transit number. That's basically the credit union's account number or your bank's account number. It's just a fancy word called routing and transit number. If you have a check, I don't know if anybody uses checks here. I don't use them very often, but the routing number is right here, the first one, and then the account number, or some iteration of it, might have some extra zeros and ones, is right there. And then, of course, this is just the check number. And you can, where I work, you can direct deposit in various accounts. So if you want some to go to CP and you want some to go to American One, you can do that. So let's talk about some of the benefits and what you're going to encounter. Flexible spending accounts are accounts where you can take money out of your pay with no taxation on that money, put it into an account, and then you can pay for medical bills, co-pays, glasses, dental work, things that you may have to pay for, but you commit to deduct that money over the year. So let's say you know you're going to have a crown done and you need $1,000 to pay for that crown. You can divide that by however many pays are in the year. So if that's 26 pays, you divide that out, and that's how much you could put into your flex spending account. And the money that you put in that account will not be taxed. So, and I'll show you an example of kind of the bottom line of what that means. It's a good tax benefit. You can pay for those expenses with a debit card. There's a special flexible account spending debit card that you can use. Or you can reimburse by turning in explanation of benefit forms or invoices or something that you've paid for to the account company, and then they'll send you your money once you've gotten a billing. You can also do this for daycare expenses. If you have a child and you work and you need to pay for daycare, you can put money away pre-tax, before taxes come out, and then pay your daycare provider. So this is my example. So let's say you make $45,000 a year, and you commit during the year to put $7,000 in your flex spending account. So this is without a flex spending account, and this is with. So you put this in to your flex spending account. We're only going to pay taxes on $38,000, not on the $45,000. So you can see it reduces your taxes, and you end up. Did I do that backwards? No, you end up with more in the end. So see, you're paying your expenses with after-tax money. So you can look and see that your Social and Medicare is reduced a little bit, your federal taxes, your state taxes, and then when you'll notice on your W-2 that your taxable income is a reduced number. So you actually get more income that way by using those things. Flexible spending accounts, the government says you can put up to $2,650 per year into them for medical bills. Some employers don't offer the whole $2,650. They may offer a lesser amount, or they may offer the whole amount. You can roll 500 of it over into the next year, but the rest of it you have to use or lose. So you kind of want to know, do you have glasses that you need to pay for? Do you have dental work that needs to be done? Do you have a recurring prescription you need to pay for with a copay? That might be a good those good things to calculate in there and see what's an optimal amount to put in. You can use, for the flexible medical account, you can use those funds before you actually deposit them in there. Every pay period, they go into that account, but if you don't have enough built up in there, you can still use them. That's a risk that the employer takes on. So if you were to leave before the end of the year, the employer is shorted the money. But if you didn't use it and you left, you have so many days to turn in receipts for what you did put in. And if you can't find enough receipts to get reimbursed, then you may lose some as well. So for a dependent care account, you could put up to $5,000 in there per year. And that one is a use it or lose it. There is no rollover for paying for daycare expenses. Now, for daycare, your daycare provider has to report the income that they get from you on their taxes. Otherwise, they're not going to want to give you their tax ID number. So that's what those are. Health insurance is designed to protect you from catastrophic costs, right? A 3-day hospital stay can cost $30,000. A broken leg, $7,500. Cancer can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when you have health insurance, it's designed to protect you from that, so maybe you pay a portion of the cost versus the whole thing. And I hope you like my Dilbert. I thought that was pretty fun. He's cute. Healthcare. So health insurance, you may have it now through yourself if you have a full-time job or through your parents. But your options to enroll in healthcare are limited. So you may have Blue Cross Blue Shield, Blue Care Network, Priority Health. Henry Ford Allegiance has something called HAP, and I can't remember what it stands for. Or there are other different insurers as well. Just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, your options to enroll are limited. You can only enroll when you hire or when you have a qualifying event, meaning you've lost your coverage somewhere else, or you have a child and you want to add that child, or you get married. Those are the only times you can make changes to healthcare with an employer. The amount that you pay toward the premiums is taken out before tax. Just like that flex spending account, we're going to talk about that a lot throughout these slides. It's called a 125 plan, named after a section in the IRS code that says if you pay medical premiums out of your pay to pay for your health insurance, it comes out pre-tax, meaning you don't get charged tax on those. You're going to need to bring information. So if you're going to enroll your dependents, your kids, your spouse, you're going to need their social security number to do that and enroll them in health insurance. You also may need to know your doctor's full name and what's called their National Provider Index number, or NPI number. And you can usually find that on the health insurance provider's website. They'll have those there, or you can Google it as well. Or you can call the office. I've had people do that too. Let's talk about the different things with healthcare. Employers are required to supply what's called a summary benefit of coverage, SBC. The Healthcare Reform Act says that we have to provide that to you so you can see what your coverage is in an easy-to-read format, and you can understand it. You can pick from several different kinds of plans potentially. At CP, we have one plan that we offer, so there's no choice. You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. But at other places, you may have 2 or 3 choices, and they may cost more. Some may cost more, some may cost less. And so you want to know what kind of user are you of your healthcare costs. So I like to call it mathematic acrobatics, or you need a flow chart to do these things, and I'm going to show you what they are in a minute. But costs for different health care, you can have co-pays. You go to the doctor, you pay 20 bucks, but the insurance pays the other 60 bucks. That's what a copay is. When you see or you go to the urgent care and it costs $50 copay, the other 50 is paid by the healthcare insurance. Deductibles are generally for bigger things, like you know how your car insurance has a deductible. You get in an accident and you're like, oh, I got $500 I got to pay before the insurance kicks in. Same way with health insurance. So the health insurance, you want to look at those deductibles and see how high they are. You may have a $500 deductible, so if you had to go in the hospital or have something more serious done, that's when those come into play. They'll say, we'll cover it, but you've got to pay $500 towards the cost first, okay? And then after deductibles, this is where the acrobatics come in, is co-insurance. So after you meet your deductible, there may be something that says, okay, after you meet your deductible, you'll pay 20% and we'll pay 80%. So you're still cost sharing in the costs. And those are things you want to look at. So you want to know what kind of user of your insurance you are. When I was young, I went to the urgent care instead of the doctor. That's the only thing I did. And so I paid urgent care copays. And you know, I didn't really need a rich coverage plan. But then as I got older and had children, or have other things go wrong that come with age, you know, it makes more sense for me to have a lower deductible and better coverage, because I'm going to save money that way. Less of my money, more of the insurance company's money as I have larger bills. So you're going to want to look at the affordability of the different options. Something that has a high deductible or bigger co-insurance costs may cost less out of your paycheck. But remember, if something happens, you're going to pay a little more for that service. So there are various types of health plans that you'll hear thrown around: HMOs, PPOs, high deductible health plans, point of service plans. I picked 3 that tend to be the most popular ones, to just kind of give you an idea of how they work. I remember hearing all these jokes about HMOs and how terrible an HMO was. Well, an HMO that's the acronym for Health Maintenance Organization. That's what we have at the credit union. You have a network of doctors and labs and hospitals that you can use. If your doctor's not on the network, sorry, Charlie, there's no coverage for that. So when we switched to this plan, we had several employees whose doctors weren't on the network, and so they had to move. They were not happy, but they survived. But they had to move doctors in order to get the benefits from their coverage. But they do this because they have agreements with these doctors to provide a lower cost of care. So you have to be on a list. Anything that you do has to be authorized through your primary care physician. So you have to pick one doctor to be your one go-to doctor. And that person says, yep, I think you need to see a specialist. I'm going to give you an official referral. You can't just go see a specialist willy-nilly, because that's how we keep costs lower in an HMO or in a health maintenance organization plan. Because I've heard it before with employees. Well, someone might say, oh, I got an ingrown toenail, I'm going to the podiatrist. Well, that's $135, or you could go to your primary care physician and it's probably $60. And who ends up paying the cost of all of those services? The employees do, because that all counts towards the premiums that they charge the whole organization in the end. So the higher the costs, the more the premiums go up. So that's how they kind of control those things. Of course, you pay a share of the premium. So the premium is how much it costs to have the health insurance, and your cost share is what comes out of your pay. So just to give you a round example, like a single coverage SCP costs about $430 a month. For one person, $430 a month. So you multiply that times 12 months, that's probably $4,800 or more per year that we're paying for health insurance. Now, our employees pay a portion of that, about 25% per pay period. And so they pay about $45 a pay period for their coverage. Let's see. So we talked just a minute ago about copays. These plans generally have copays. You pay $20 to go to the doctor. You pay $10 for your prescription if it's a generic. You pay $40 if it's a name brand prescription drug, those sorts of things, urgent care. There are generally deductibles, but in HMOs they tend to be a little lower than some other plans. So if you have a major service done, you get an outpatient, you have your child gets tubes in their ears, or you go for an outpatient surgery, or you're in an accident, you're admitted to the hospital, and you're in the hospital for days, you're going to have to pay that deductible towards the costs, just like you would car insurance before the other stuff kicks in, the insurance kicks in. And then there could be the co-insurance costs. After you meet your deductible, you look at the service that you had on this chart that says, okay, I was hospitalized and I met my deductible, but it says that they'll cover 80%, so I've still got to cover another 20% of that cost. There's what's called out-of-pocket maximums in an HMO. Once you add all these costs together, once they reach a certain amount, all the deductibles and co-insurances and co-pays go away and everything is 100% covered. That's a lot of costs, though, that you would have to really incur to get to that point. Okay, so another kind is a preferred provider organization, or PPO, health insurance plan. Similar to the HMO in that there's a network of providers that you can choose from, but you're not required to go to your primary care doctor to get a referral to a specialist. So if you just wanted to go to a specialist and they're okay with that, you can go see the specialist. Some specialists won't take you without a referral, others will. You can just make an appointment. There is some coverage if your doctor is not in the network. It's not as good, but there is some coverage if your doctor is not in the network of list of doctors or labs or whatnot. And again, this plan has deductibles, a co-insurance structure, and they tend to have higher premiums than an HMO, what we just looked at, because the care is not as controlled, the costs are not as controlled, and so it costs a little more. And so your cost may be a little more if you chose that plan. And then the other popular one that's out there is called a high deductible health plan. And these are a little bit newer, not new, but newer to the market than the other two. They can be an HMO design, the first one, or the PPO design, but they have a large deductible, and they are structured a little differently in how they pay things. So with a high deductible health plan, for a single, the government says that the plan has to have a minimum of $1,350 in deductible costs. And for a family, it's $2,700. Some companies have high deductible health plans that have $3,000 or $10,000 deductibles. That's the low end of it. With a high deductible health plan, you pay upfront for everything. Everything hits that deductible before the insurance kicks in. So if you have a prescription, instead of paying a $10 or a $40 copay, you might be paying $60. If you have to go to the doctor, instead of paying that copay, you're going to pay the $65 or the $85 that it costs to go to your doctor. Or if you have a lab test done, you may pay that full cost until you hit your deductible and the insurance kicks in. What's the benefit of that? You become a smarter shopper of your healthcare services when you have to pay for it versus just paying a copay and going whenever and wherever. You might say, you know what, Walgreens is way too expensive for my prescription. I get a better cost at this other place. I'm going there. So you can save money. Often paired, this plan is often paired with what's called a health savings account, similar to a flex spending account, except you don't lose it. It rolls over. It's an actual bank account or credit union account that's out there, and you should save money on premiums with this plan and put it in your HSA, your health savings account, to pay for those things. Some employers will actually put contributions into your HSA to help you fund it. So when you do have that expense, you have something in your health savings account to pay for it. And the health savings account is designed similarly to an IRA. You can keep it until age 65, and then you have to start taking withdrawals from it.
We might need to transition to the Q&A.
Okay.
Just to make sure if any people do need to scoot out, that way they can address some of their questions. Is that okay to?
Yeah, I was just
transition
hoping to
that?
go over 401k. Can I
Okay.
do that real quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Transition
Man.
that. Thank you.
I talk too much. All right, so I want to talk about 401k because this is where a lot of people go, deer in the headlights, look. So there are several different retirement plans. When you go to an employer, you may experience a pension plan. Those are fading, by the way. It's just a defined benefit that you get when you retire. You have no control over the investments. You just know that when you retire, you're going to get this set amount of benefit. Or you may get a 401k, or if you're in a public sector or a not-for-profit, a nonprofit, you might be offered a 403b. Those are plans where you can take your money and put it pre-tax again into different investments. So you can invest it more than just a savings account. You can do mutual funds, and you can choose from those mutual funds, or you could choose an index fund that's already designed to, invest the appropriate way for someone who's going to retire on a certain year date. So there are two different kinds of IRAs. Roth, which is an after-tax, meaning you put your after-tax money in, and when you get older and you take it out, there's no taxes on it. Or a traditional 401k, where you put the money in pre-tax out of your paycheck, and then when you take it out, and you start taking that benefit when you retire, you are taxed at that point. So you're going to need to bring beneficiary information. So if something happens to you, who's going to get that money? And you want to think about maybe having a primary beneficiary and a contingent beneficiary. So you have a first, and if something happens to the two of you together and you pass away, who's going to be the next person to get the money? Sometimes if you have children, maybe your spouse is your primary beneficiary, and then after that your children could be your beneficiary. And you can designate it by percentage. I want 33% to go to my mom, I want 33% to go to my brother, I want 34% to go somewhere else. You can do that, and you may need their social security numbers. So I have a lot of stuff if you want to take it, but just an example of how the match works. I mean, you end up without a 401k, you have no savings account. You get a little bit more in your paycheck. However, if you put money in a 401k, you end up with $2,700 in your savings account, and you pay less in taxes. So we don't need to give the government any more money than they already have. But there's a lot of other different stuff here that you may need to know. Let me just flip to the end. So for your first day, definitely bring 2 forms of ID. For your I-9 or your employment form, I do have that list here, or you can Google it as well. Your social security card, so that the payroll person can verify we're sending the taxes and the benefits to the right place. Your financial institution information for your direct deposit form. Your social security numbers, birthdays of any beneficiaries. So if you die, who's going to get the proceeds of your life insurance or your 401k plan? Who's that going to go to? You may need those. And decide who your beneficiaries are. And you may need their social security numbers in the end. So everything that I've given you is described in the IRS or government publication or tax tables that you can look online. I've given you some websites. None of it's a mystery. It's all out there to be had if you're interested. Remember, if you have insurance benefits, there should be summary benefits of coverage so you can understand what's in the plan. And retirement plans have summary plan descriptions, or what's called SPDs. So it's a plain language description of how your 401k or how your pension plan works. And you can ask your employer to see those at any time.
We're gonna move into
Yeah, Chair,
Q&A.
appreciation for Becky.
Sorry.
No, I just want to say, so I really appreciate her being here, and then Sarah as well. So CP Federal Credit Union actually is an organization that sponsors all of our Dollars and Donuts in the fall and the spring. So not only do they come and give us some very helpful information, but then they actually sponsor the other people to come, pay for our donuts and coffee. And so they just have been a fantastic partner with Spring Arbor. They just care about students, they care about the Jackson community, and so they've been fantastic. And then just, the information she's talking about today, it's human resources. And I mean, the idea of HR or human resources, it's as humans, we are the greatest resource to the organization that we work at. We're more valuable than a machine or a computer. Those are all tools to help the humans be the most valuable resource they can. So all this kind of stuff, it ties into supporting the people that are making an organization run, and there's so many pieces that go to that. Yeah, so I just appreciate you kind of breaking that down, because I think it's, especially going into a job for the first time, it's hard to figure out how do I wrap my mind around all of these things that are really important. And so, yeah, a lot of just fantastic stuff to go through. So I encourage you, if you have questions now, just, you know, shoot them at Becky, because if there's stuff about, yeah, what does it look like to get invested in the 401k plan? What does it look like to choose the right, you know, benefit health plan for myself? What is claiming taxes? You know, what's the best way to go about doing that? Yeah, this is time just to, whatever your specific situation is, shoot some questions that way. So thanks again.
Go ahead.
As far as like a health savings account versus a flexible spending account, is there as much of a limit on how much you can put in that account as there is with the flexible spending account?
There is. The flexible spending account you can get at any time, and there's, I think it was $28.50 was the max you could put into a flexible spending account, whereas an HSA account has a much higher limit, and I don't recall what it is, but it's, I want to say it's $5,000 to $7,000 is my guess. Go ahead.
Are there any requirements for having a flexible spending account?
What was that?
Are there any requirements for having a flexible spending account?
Nope. If your employer offers that benefit, then you're able to sign up, and you just have to commit to deducting that amount every pay period. There's no requirements. Back to the health savings account, though, you do have to have a high deductible health plan in order to have a health savings account. So you can't have the HSA without having that special high deductible health plan.
And you did say that, like, except for $500, it doesn't carry over.
Correct. So you want to make sure you're going to use it on something. I've had employees say, oh my gosh, it's the end of the year, I haven't used my flex spending account, I don't have anything to turn in, what do I do? There's nothing you can do. It goes into the total assets of the plan. So, go ahead.
Can you use it on stuff like a chiropractor's appointment, or is that
Yes.
like not?
Yes,
Okay.
you can. You can use it for doctor's appointments, chiropractors, glasses, dental work, things that aren't covered by your insurance is what you're really looking for. You know, you generally are not supposed to be able to use it on vitamins and over-the-counter things unless your doctor sends something specific in to the company that says, you know, yes, they medically need this, it's required.
So if you do have a high deductible health plan and you have an option between a flexible spending account or a HSA, a health savings account, is there any reason you would ever do a FSA rather than a HSA, since HSA can roll over and it's not a use it or lose it kind of thing?
The health savings account, I think, is probably more beneficial to use with a high deductible health plan, just because you keep all of that money even if you don't use it. The idea is if you don't use it, guess what? You've got a nest egg to keep rolling over. Whereas the flex spending account, you've got to use it or lose it within the $500. So I've had both. I still have one of them. And you can't have the two together. So you can't have a health savings account and a full flex spending account. Your flex spending account is limited on what it can do if you have a health savings.
Another, like, comparing between the FSA and the HSA. So the FSA, you can only put up to like the $26.50 or whatever,
Yeah.
and that's like periodically throughout the year. That's not like, so I can't put in $1,000 here and then spend that and then put in another like 2,000.
Right.
Like you can only put in so much, and then
Yeah.
the health savings account you can continually put in and take out.
With a health savings account, your employer takes the money out of your pay and submits it to the financial institution. And they probably would have a rule that maybe, you know, you could change it once a month, or maybe they allow you to change it every pay period, but you can move what you contribute up and down much more easily. Whereas a flex spending account, you're committed to one set amount for the whole year. Now with a flex spending account, if you have let's say it's January, just to be simple, and you've committed to put $1,000 in your health savings account, or flex spending account, the one that's use it or lose it, in February, you need to spend the $1,000 and get braces or something. So you spend the $1,000, even though you haven't put it in there yet, but we're going on good faith that over the year you're going to continue that contribution. At the end it'll square up. So the flex spending account, you can use it. Health savings account, you can't until it's there. There's so many nuances, I know it's confusing. Yes?
If you don't go to the doctor a lot, and you're just moving from your parents' insurance to your own, would you say HMO is better, I think my mom has a high deductible one, because they talk about high deductibles all the time, so would it, just for you, would the HMO be?
If you're not a heavy user of health insurance and you have a high deductible plan offered to you, chances are you're going to pay lower premiums out of your paycheck. And if your employer contributes to your health savings account, that's free money. You know, if you put in, we did a match at CP at one point where we used to put in, if you put in, $50, we put in $50, and we do that until you got to 1,000. We put in half of it. So I would say, and you can roll that over year to year, so the high deductible would be better. Just understand, if you have something traumatic happen, you may have to pay that deductible before things kick in. So, any other questions? Well, I think we can turn over to Sarah to give out the
Diehards get to stay late and get to win stuff.
That's right.
So, woo! I have a $25 gift card, Visa gift card. So I need you to answer a question. So we'll just shout out the answer and you help me to get the right answer.
Oh gosh. Okay.
What year was CP Federal Credit Union started?
Come on, anything.
1960.
Oh,
What you just said?
Yeah.
Anyone else want to guess?
close.
1950.
Ooh, even closer.
47.
No, you're getting colder.
53.
1954.
Wait, who said 53?
53.
You did. That's 1953.
1953. If we had a tie, I would ask you what month. But it's April. So congratulations. Yay.
I have copies of the presentation. If you're not interested, it's okay. My feelings aren't hurt. I know it's not an exciting topic,
I
but
learned stuff.
but
I'm sure
or
all
if
that
you're
before.
interested in I-9 forms, feel free to take them. If not, I will recycle them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.